What's going on, guys? It's Dean here from Pure Heat Systems. I'm just going to give you the lowdown on my V2 Pure Heat hot water diesel window cleaning system. I've had a lot of questions about how the system works, questions on fitment and various different things. So I'm going to go over some stuff today in this video. Thank you for watching. So let's start with the heater itself, guys. So when you receive your heater, this is what it's going to look like. So when we designed this heater, we designed it with the intention that it'd be easy to work on. So one of the main features of this is the fact that you, as the customer, if you have a problem with anything, you can get to anything in this unit very, very easily. We have a diagnosis wire here. So if you have an issue, you can simply send us it back and we can plug our diagnostic system into this heater and find out what the potential problem is. So here we have the cold water in pipe there and the hot water out pipe. Now we can fit this into your unit in two different ways. We prefer to fit it in the raised mounted position, so that allows air ventilation from underneath the unit, and we can run these pipes straight through the nice open slot in the bottom. Same for the exhaust. You have a 22mm ID diameter exhaust there, which runs through a small hole in the floor of the van. I do recommend, if you're unsure, you get these fitted professionally. I'm not really here to tell you how to do things DIY in case you hurt yourself, but I'm just telling you how it goes. So you have a small diesel line there to hook up, which you will be given a full diesel line in the kit. So it's just a simple Jubilee clip, and you will run that line to a choice of your own diesel tank. So I use a 25-litre drum. You may want to hook it into the van, you may want to use one of the small tanks off eBay, or you may want to use a small jerry can. This here is the coolant reservoir, so we're going to be putting a halfway marker on there, and we're going to want to keep that topped up, check that regularly. That needs to have red antifreeze in that. Your power cables for the unit are here. Again, we recommend just routing them straight through the bottom. Most of our customers so far are mounting these either on a couple of pieces of uni-strut or raised on the side of their tank frame, or we can also supply you a custom-made frame for these units. So if you'd like a custom-made frame, please get in contact, and that's something we can provide for the spec of your van. Just drop us an email on the website if you want to know more about that. So for this next section of the video, we're going to go over to the demo van, i.e. my working daily van. So as you can see, I've got the unit slightly raised, mounted on a frame, which has been custom made. So my diesel pipes and my electrical wires and my hoses all go out the back nicely, and they are cable tied to this piece of channel steel. So that's a nice way of doing it. I also have a 25-litre drum there for the diesel. You can buy clear 25-litre drums off eBay. They're about £10, they're nice and cheap. And you can simply drill a hole in the bottom and you can fit, that is known as a vacuum nipple. And it has a bolt and 2 rubber washers. So that's your fuel system. Going on to how I've got my exhaust. So there's my exhaust pipe. You don't need to have it stuck out that much. I need to trim it back. So I've used a piece of copper pipe, and then you will be supplied with some of this exhaust pipe. You will need to measure up some clamps and get yourself some Michelor clamps. That's these bad boys. You need to use exhaust heat paste if you're going to attempt to do this yourself. As I've said, guys, I take no responsibility for you guys fitting your own diesel lines and fitting your own exhausts. Ignore my bodge here. This is how I've done it on mine. I chose to do it myself. Like I say, I recommend you take it to a mechanic. So there's my exhaust going up through there. I've just simply used heat-proof tape and used the main van exhaust to channel it to. I'd suggest bracketing it to that properly if you're going to do it yourself. Like I said, guys, I am taking no responsibility for you fitting your own exhaust and you fitting your own diesel lines. So let's talk about the recirculation. Right, recirculating the water. So here we have my Waterworks electric reel, and this here is the hot feed coming from the heater unit. Okay, so then we're going to run a T-piece and then we're going to go to the reel, and then off the T-piece we're coming round the back here, and we're coming up over here, and then we've got this tap, okay? And then the pipe from the tap runs back to the bulkhead fitting. You will get supplied an 8mm ID tap, an 8mm ID T-piece, and a bulkhead fitting with an 8mm tail end. If you need different sizes or different hoses and your system's different, you can just search those bits in whatever ID hose that you run. So say it's 13mm, you're going to need to search for that. But this is what I send it with, okay? And you'll probably need to get yourself some 8mm coolant hose. So this is fuel oil hose. It's really tough. It takes the heat really well. So that's the sort of hose I recommend for that. Right, now when it comes to using the system, if you want to preheat your water at night in the tank because you're worried about the cold weather and it's freezing, etc., what you're going to do, you're going to have your heater on. It comes with a simple on and off fob. I will show you that shortly, to turn the heater on and off. You're going to have this tap open that way, which is going to be diverting all of the water back to the tank. You're going to turn your flow controller, I got my little cheapy flow controller, you're going to turn it to a fairly low setting, so you've got a nice run of water, hot water, running back to your tank. That's going to circulate all night long, okay? And that's going to heat your tank water up, probably to about 40 degrees. But then also you've got to bear in mind that if you preheat your tank water, to keep an eye on your temps at the pole when you're using it throughout the day. By the time you get to 10, 11 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock, depending on the size of your tank, I'd recommend just going ahead and turning your heater off. Now we can add a mixer valve, but if we add a mixer valve, I wouldn't really want the mixer valve in the unit, because you're going to have to keep opening the door and turning it constantly. So I'd recommend, if you want a mixer valve, have one on the outside. And a mixer valve is the same thing again. You're just teeing in to your hot water pipe from your cold and your hot. We can talk about that more if you decide you want one of those. I don't personally use one. I've never needed one in the years I've been using one of these. So yeah. What you got to understand about running a mixer valve with a setup like this is, as the water's recirculating, so in between each job, so when I'm cleaning windows, I'm in the off position, so I'm getting all the water to my hose reel, okay? When I go back and I reel my hose up, I'm going to crack that open, and that's super important, not just because we want to be heating the water up in the tank. It's not even about that. It's about preserving your heater and preserving your battery. You hear about a lot of horror stories of people's batteries getting wrecked or constantly needing services for the heaters. These heaters like to be running continuously, okay? So if you're not recirculating the water and pulling some of the heat out of the heat exchanger, when the coolant loop reaches 80 degrees, the unit shuts off completely until the coolant drops to 60 degrees, to which point it kicks back in. Now when that unit cuts off at 80 degrees, your water is going to go really cool coming out of here, and you're not going to have overly hot water anymore. That's the one problem. Problem number two is, as soon as this unit goes below 60 degrees in the coolant loop, it's then going to boot back up again. And this is going to be happening all day long. So each time it does a startup cycle, it's pulling a lot of current from the battery, because it's only on the initial startup that the batteries take a hit from the heater. And not only that, constant stop starting of anything diesel like that sucks up components. Just think of it as a DPF filter. If you're doing short journeys and you're constantly stop starting a vehicle and not getting it up to temperature, you're going to clog up the DPF. It's exactly the same for the heater. So we like to keep that burner running continuously. So that's the recirculation valve explained. Going back to the mixer valve, the reason why I don't run one. When you're preheating, a mixer valve relies on cold water coming in and hot water coming in, and then it produces a mix to what you choose the temperature to be. When the water in your tank is already hot and the water coming out of here is hot, it's going to struggle to regulate it. So what we say, guys, is run this heater until you're happy with the temperature coming out the pole. You can feel it. You could even run an inline temperature gauge. You can buy simple, cheap Chinese temperature gauges where you can hook them round the pipe at your tank and you can take a look at it and it'll tell you what the temperature is if you're concerned. Now, I have not had a problem in the last few years of running hot water systems. I have never cracked a piece of glass. You hear about, you know, people worrying about cracking glass. Guys, when this thing's starting to get a bit warm, if you think it's too hot, just turn it off and then you're running off the warm water in your tank. By the time it heats up the hose and goes through all your hose, trailed out on the cold floors and gets up to the windows, it's nowhere near as hot as you think it's going to be, guys. Okay, you don't have to. Another thing is you can use these on demand. When I was first explaining, I probably didn't quite explain it right, so that's why I'm putting this in-depth video together on the subject. You can use these on demand. The whole point of preheating your water tank at night is so that your system doesn't freeze. And it also means you can turn your heater off halfway through the day when you're happy that the water coming out of your tank is warm enough anyway. But if you want to go ahead and use this on demand, you can use it on demand. You don't even have to have the recirculation on a tap. We can provide you with a recirculation pressure relief valve. You can buy them from Screwfix. They're £6. It'll fit a bulkhead on the bulkhead fitting. Once your pump reaches pressure, so you've cut off your hose reel, okay, and your pump is squeezing that pressure, your pressure relief valve on your bulkhead fitting is going to open. It's going to allow water back to the tank, okay, and then as soon as you crack open your hose again, it's going to give you pure water to your pole again. So this is your simple bulkhead fitting, and this is a pressure relief valve. So if you want to automate your recirculating of the water in between jobs and you don't want to use the tap is more used for if you want to recirculate water to your tank overnight to heat it up. But if you're just wanting to use it on demand, you can get one of these 3-bar pressure relief valves from Screwfix, and that's the bulkhead fitting that you get supplied with each kit. Or you can ask for the option, if you want this supplying instead of the tap, we can do that too. So this here, guys, is the positive to the fuel pump. Now when you first want to boot these systems up, you might need to prime the fuel system, otherwise you'll get a false start and it won't kick in. So the best way to prime these, they are a dosing pump, and they have a little actuator in them that sort of goes click, click, click. Okay, so what you want to do is you've got the little Wago connector here. Click that back, pull that out. That's going to give you access to the fuel pump positive. Get a jump lead from the positive side of your battery, tap it on. So tap, 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 tap. And that's going to pull the fuel. So each time you tap, fuel's going to be moving. Tap, 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 tap. That'll prime your system. So if you have any non-starting issues, prime it up. So I hope that covers everything on the Pure Heat version 2 hot water window cleaning system. Like I say, I recommend, safety is always a concern. If you want to fit these things DIY, that's up to you guys. I fitted mine DIY, but I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. What I would always recommend is having your exhaust fitted professionally, your diesel lines checked, do your yearly inspections, 6 monthly yearly inspections. Guys, run a carbon monoxide detector in the cab of your van. Safety is important. I hope this video was good enough. I hope it's covered all the questions that a lot of people have been asking me recently. Thanks for watching, guys. Link will be in the description below to where you can buy the heater from. Thank you, have a good day.